It's that time again. If you're a real estate agent and you're looking to finally build a business that creates consistent cash flow, but you're concerned about all of the market disruptions, relax. You found your safe haven to learn the secret to success. List you last. Welcome to this week's podcast. Hey, welcome, fellow listing agents. Bob Mangold, the listing coach, here with this week's episode of the If You List Your Last podcast. Hey, as always, thanks for listening, sharing, and most importantly, downloading. Now, on this podcast, we're going to talk about what's happened to buyer's agent comp 6 months after the NAR agreement, and I think you're going to be really surprised. Just a quick reminder before we get started, make sure you join our Real Estate Asset Advisor Facebook group so you can join in on the conversation, share your thoughts, comments, or questions on any of the topics I discuss right here on the podcast. And as always, you can connect with me at www.homebosslistinghub.com. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get to it. Before I go into the compensation discussion, I want to have a quick conversation with you about interest rates and some of the things that I see going on and happening. Just this weekend, Scott Besant, the new Treasury Secretary, had some interesting comments about interest rates. And that, number one, interest rates since the election in November has gone down every single week. And they're right. Again, they're still in the high sixes, but that's down from where they were at. The biggest deal right now is that the spread on the Treasury notes is starting to shrink. And that's important. Meaning, what's the difference in rate between a 30-year and a 10-year and a 5 and a 10, et cetera. Right now, that margin is pretty substantial, almost at historic highs in terms of a gap, but it is narrowing and narrowing relatively quickly. The other thing that just happened is the Atlanta Fed came out today and revised their GDP for the first quarter from +2 to -1.5%. What that means for us is if that actually were to occur, I think what you'd see is the Fed come back into the market and start talking about lowering the interest rates on treasuries, right? Which would be a good thing for all of us. So at the end of the day, there's some good things coming. Now, I went back and watched something else that he said today, just to make sure that it wasn't a mistake. And he said that he sees a profound impact on the housing market in a positive way within the next few weeks, not few months, few weeks. But if interest rates continue to come down, I think that long term, that'll be a great thing for us as we continue going forward. So some pretty positive things going on right now that could help us. Again, interest rates, April, May, we might see something significant. Again, depending on what happens with inflation numbers and job numbers. If the job numbers keep disappointing, again, that's going to force the Fed to start to lower the rates. Again, the Fed fund rate is not mortgage rates, but it eventually does have a trickle-down effect and impact mortgage interest rates. If they want to spur the economy because they think it's slowing and job growth is shrinking, then that will have a positive impact on interest rates into the mortgage market, into auto loans, credit cards, all of that, which is a good thing for the economy. So with that, let's talk about what's actually happened in this NAR settlement. There were 2 studies that were just done that found that commission rates right after the NAR settlement was announced, that commission rates did drop a little bit, but they pretty much recovered. So one report analyzed 224,000 transactions that found in the 5 months after the rule change deadline, so this is after August, both buyer and seller commissions are about the same as they were a year ago. Pretty profound, right? A separate report looked only at buy-side commissions and found that small declines happened overall, but there was more variance at different price points. People are willing to pay for that representation. I believe, my opinion, that, as I said before all this happened, is that agents had to figure out what their value was to the marketplace, and they're going to need to communicate that to the public. So far, I think we must be doing a pretty good job because buyers and sellers are still willing to pay those commissions. Now, I know that there are a lot of agents that are worried about future commission trends, but around half of them say that they haven't noticed anything so far, which is a great thing for us. Okay. Now, one of the things that came out in one of these studies is that the commission rates between sellers agents and buyers agents. And so one of the things that's always critical, and it's why I talk about listing, right? If you list, you last, the name of the podcast. So listing agent commissions averaged 2.73% in mid January, which was up slightly from 2.72% a year ago, and an improvement over the post settlement low of 2.69% in November. So listing agent commissions have actually gone up. Buyer's agents commissions is a different story, right? Buyer's agents commissions right now sit at about 2.55%, 2.5%. What that says is that buyer's agent commission hasn't moved at all, right? And in certain markets, like I'm licensed in California, in certain markets, commission rates for buyer's agency have been 1.5%, 2% for the last 5 years. What we seen was there was a dip right after 30 days after the settlement, and they've now come back to exactly where they were before any of this started. I think as an industry, agents have gotten better at being able to explain to buyers how it works. Sellers understand that if they really want to sell their house, they're going to have to offer compensation. How they get to their numbers, up to them. But they realize that you would be foolish not to do that, right? And there's some studies that have come out that have shown, and I won't talk about them because they are company specific, but some of these where they're saying, hey, we're not putting them in MLS, the percentage of sales price is substantially lower than the rest of the market. Meaning, if you don't want to put your house on MLS, you don't have to, and they've made provisions for it, but just understand you're not going to sell it for as much money. Now, there may be reasons a seller wants to do it that way, right? Whether it's privacy, inconvenience, whatever the reasoning is, it really doesn't matter. But what we do know is that sellers understand that. Now, during the fourth quarter of last year, buyer agent comp was 2.37%, which was unchanged from the third quarter, and it was down. But commissions on homes under 500,000 rose in the fourth quarter to 2.5%. And then homes in the $1 million plus range, the buyer commission was 2.17. So the people that are a little bit more savvy with their money are also more savvy with being able to negotiate. And so the key is, though, folks, what we're finding overall, and again, this certainly could be market specific, but what we're finding is there's very little change in the buyer agent compensation. Paperwork's different, forms are different, conversations with sellers are different, but at the end of the day, we're not seeing that. The Redfin report, which is the one that analyzed the 224,000 people, included data from an agent survey, and half of the 500 agents that they polled said commissions had stayed about the same post-settlement, and 43% reported some declines, and a slight majority said more buyers and sellers have been negotiating commission since the new rules took effect. But at the end of the day, we're right where we were before all that took place. So they're negotiating, but we're still ending up in the same basic place. And then another finding found the same thing. Buyer agents, 55%, listing agents, 64%, said commissions haven't changed much from 2023. Doesn't mean that there aren't concerns out there. Doesn't mean that can't change. But I do personally believe that it forced agents to now understand what value they bring to the community, be able to express that to potential buyers. And the seller's side, I believe the seller always understood that you need to open up that funnel of potential buyers. We've done podcasts on how you come to those numbers and how to do the research in your market. But in a market like Phoenix or Maricopa County, if you didn't put your house in the MLS or you didn't offer buyer's comp, you'd be missing out on literally 100,000 agents being able to know about your house that had, if we said they had on average 50 or 500 people in their database, it's literally 500,000 potential buyers that wouldn't see your house. We all know that when buyers compete, sellers win, and sellers know that too. The buyers, for their part, aren't really concerned as long as it's built into the process and it makes sense. So the good news is that we're really not seeing anything 6 months out. Does that bode well, or can I say that a year from now those numbers would hold? I can't, but I don't believe they'll change much because people understand that there's a value in what agents do in putting these transactions together. Listen, guys, you can go on ChatGPT and you can go on the internet and you can see all the things that you think you need to learn about that transaction, that real estate transaction. Just ask yourself this: how many times have you, as whether it's a buyer agent or a seller's agent, had a seller who, let's say, they got emotional over a Binzer report, a request for repairs, and got all emotional about it and was making no sense, but you were able to talk them off the ledge to keep the transaction together? And the answer to that is, I promise, it's happened millions of times over our career as an industry. And so that's why I don't think you'll ever see real estate agents go away. I just seen an article in a business journal last week that said there's a company in Spain that can attribute $100 million in real estate sales to AI agents. Now, what that sounds like is somehow a real estate agent has been, an AI agent has actually been out showing homes and doing all that. When you read the article, all it was is they employed an AI agent, which we also do on our websites, to be able to answer questions and be able to get support. So, for example, if you were running a Facebook ad at 3 o'clock in the morning and somebody goes on your Facebook page, well, you're not there to ask the questions. We have AI agents in there answering those questions, seeing what they want, seeing if we can help them that way. Or the worst case is say, hey, Bob will be available tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Would you like me to have him reach out, or would you like to schedule a call? And they can give you the link to the Calendly and things like that. Folks, that's where AI is going to come in. It will make us more efficient, but it will not replace us. And the number one reason agents won't be replaced, the answer is simple: it's liability. Till you take all the liability out of a real estate transaction, which will never happen, you will always see real estate agents involved in the transaction. The reason that we get paid the money we get paid is not how much work we do, how much we advertise, or any of those things that maybe the consumer thinks. The real reason we get paid what we get paid is because of the liability we take on, whether we're the buyer's agent or the seller's agent, and we must be compensated. I personally, I love the whole thought process that we got sued by attorneys who are saying 3% commissions are ridiculous, and yet they took 40% of the multi-billion-dollar settlement that they negotiated. 3% for a real estate agent is crazy, but 40% for an attorney is okay. It's absolute ludicrous. But that's the world we live in for now, folks. We'll see what happens down the road. But for right now, just know the commissions are pretty much where they've been. And I think long term, that's a good thing. So that's it for this show. We'll talk to you next week. And remember, if you list, you last. Talk to you soon.